Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here. I'm sure I'm new to FSMA Fridays. I am Safety Chain's Chief Marketing Officer, and I'm so excited to be joined here with Kevin Stewart. We are going to go into our deck. So today we'll be talking about the FSQA heartbeat, right? Building plant-wide systems that stick with Kevin Stewart here with the Atchison Group. So, what is FSMA Fridays? I'm sure a lot of you have joined many of our sessions, but if you haven't, this is where we talk about monthly FSMA related news, regulation changes and updates, industry trends, and then we'll also go through some Q&A with the Atchison Group as well. This is a series that we've had for over a decade with the Atchison Group and Safety Chain. Before we get started, so everyone knows, you're only the panelists' mics are on. Ask questions towards the end, put them into the question box, and we will field those questions. The recording link will be shared, and audio issues, please use the call-in number if anyone's having audio issues. If you're looking to find our previous content, FSMA Friday recordings are at safetychain.com in our resources section under FSMA Friday. All right. So I'm so excited to introduce you to Kevin Stewart. He's had over 25 years of experience in food manufacturing, specifically in food safety, quality, and regulatory compliance. I've had a great time getting to know him because he actually has real experience, boots on the ground, and has done a lot of great things. Kevin, I will let you take it away as we jump to our next slide.
Good morning. So a couple of regulatory review updates that we wanted to share that have been in the public interest or in the public view. GRAS, generally acceptable or assumed safe items. The process for review has potentially has a loophole that is potentially going to be looked at to be closed. They want to channel more of the materials that are added to foods directly through the regulatory body versus having the self-approval process. There's a lot of different speculation around the impacts on the speed to market for these materials or will the FDA be able to handle with more news to come on that. Making America Healthy, or MAHA, direction and in many categories related to health and human services. Most recently, they issued out a strategy letter indicating that there were about 120 initiatives, though there didn't seem to be a lot of information around how those initiatives were going to be taken to an end or to establishing or having some output. And then finally, in the world of USDA, we've recently seen letters go out to field enforcement indicating that there's a process that is formally part of their investigative visits relative to the 9 big allergens, and they've also added into that soy, so that the sensitivities associated with that can also be investigated, but they're looking to have better alignment with FDA, which has been a long time in coming. And so the regulatory bodies that are showing up on site have gotten assigned specific tasks to do label challenges to make sure that the claims that are being made on labels are valid, the allergens that are listed are valid. If there's a no allergen claim, that's also valid. And if they're finding things, then they're requesting, obviously, recall actions associated with those materials. Next slide, please. So what is building a plant-wide? Having played or been in the role a number of times in plants, the first most logical strategic decision I make is to get to the leader. understand what the leader's priorities are, what their passion, what the tone is. Are they actually driving the culture in the plant? Are they actively engaged? Do they have expectations of their reports? So without culture being driven from the top, the CEO, the plant manager, whoever the top person is in that facility, because you could be dealing with a multiple facility organization, that top person has to drive the passion. That person is your right hand in the food safety / quality topics. And as much as you're protecting the business, the leader is making sure that it is understood that it is an organization objective. Silo thinking is not going to work. The whole process needs to be collaborative. The team, the management team at the facility, all need to know they own their parts. What do I mean by that? The QA person / food safety person is generally the spearhead or perceived as a spearhead. But the successful organizations, a food safety person on specific topics such as supplier management, maintenance, those types of sanitation type topics, R&D, microbiological EMP programs. You can have co-owners that are the strong point, and quite frankly, the food safety quality director can walk out of the room and feel very, very confident that those are going to be executed and be able to be spoken to. Team members need to understand. It's one thing to put 8, 10 people into a room, 6 people in a room, whatever the number of members are of your staff, and say, you own this, you own that, you own this, and walk away. That's not going to work. You need to have embedded or shared interest in their programs with the understanding that you're there to help them make sure it's successful, to help them understand what the expectations are, but them and their teams need to execute on the expectations. I'm not going to go to a procurement manager or supplier collaborating manager and say, this is how you deal or get supplies. But I am going to help them understand what are the things we need to ask and the records we need to keep in order to make sure those suppliers are in good standing. That goes along with customer service. What is the interface? How do we support that process? What is the information they need to gather? How do they ensure that the company or system responds correctly and responsively to customer and consumer inquiries? And then the maintenance system. Maintenance is on the heartbeat of the facility. I don't know a facility that doesn't exist with a good, strong maintenance system. Hold it. Team members drive the system. So again, FSQA is always the support structure, is always the spearhead to make sure that the fundamental pieces are in play, but the owners facilitate. So
Yes.
team members driving the process, not only the FSQA person. So I apologize. I'm trying to rethink where I was. So yes, FSQA always seems to be the point, always seems to be the go-to, but the relative shared owner of the program should be able to drive its success and bring in other members of the team for the appropriate reviews and or conversations around potential changes, whether it be ingredients, whether it be process, whether it be I need to change up how we sanitize something because we're not being successful. Be able to draw the members into the conversation, and FSQA or the delegated person that may be representing that function comes into a team, and a good solid culture-based team will be able to make those decisions, and the rest of the team is confident that the decisions being made are in their best interest or in the facility's best interest and in the food safety system's best interest. Next slide, please. So develop and challenge team members. So oftentimes with organizations where there's a lot of senior folks and or even just very seasoned folks, and then there's a mix of those who don't have much time and develop those folks, and also make it rewarding that that the challenge will help them develop. The training can expand their understanding perspective. For example, lab technicians, a lot of times, somebody with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree might apply for an entry level lab position. The reality as a director, as we all know, is they're going to want to be the director very, very rapidly because of their qualifications and or education. And so we as a managing member need to be willing to spend the time to develop the team members that may have come in less qualified but want or are eager to learn things and challenge their understanding of testing procedures, of why we do things. And that effort will help them understand the overall process and develop their perspective on why the things they do are important. We oftentimes assume that because somebody is working in a facility, they understand what they're supposed to be doing every day. They understand why they're doing things. We need to spend the time to help them understand why we do that. Be out on the floor. I can't tell you how many times I've followed lab members and or production associates and or production supervisors out on the floor to a specific process, watch the process, work with them hand in hand, and help them understand why certain process controls are in place, why certain tests are in place, and reinforce if we keep these standards in play, the life in general, the day-to-day business in general is actually easier. It's not more work. It actually makes it easier to control. So we need to invest in our folks and challenge their skills. We have to be willing to have a contest, make something like understanding how to do a specific test a challenge. So I want to be able to do an unknown. I want everybody in the room to be able to figure out whether it's good or bad. And at the end of the day, the person that does it the best, here's the swag, here's a gift certificate, here's the opportunity to get a ticket to a concert, whatever. There's many different ways of facilitating a reward from the effort that they're going to need to put forward. And some, quite frankly, just have the internal reward. They now understand something that they may have been being told, you're never going to understand this. And we have to take the time to help them put that as part of their skill set. Publish, post, actively share results. So first we need to pick something that's important. Oftentimes in the world of FSQA, sanitation, first and foremost, product efficiencies, first and foremost, number of holes, number of consumer complaints. We need to be willing to put that out there so that folks understand how we're doing. And then challenge ourselves, challenge the teams to come up with means to improve upon those performance metrics. This gives us targets, but it's going to give us targets that it requires the team to put effort in order to move that stick in the mud further down the road. And then continue to share that. And as we have improvement, be willing to celebrate that. Next slide, please. Enable, empower the floor. So this, we need to clearly explain, and this requires the team to spend time on the floor. It requires the management team to be aligned. It requires production and QA to be on the same page, which really goes back to, we need to clearly communicate what the expectations are. We need to train those expectations. And then we need to review, monitor, and give feedback on our ability to meet those expectations. So that could be as simple as doing an hourly check. That could be, do you have the appropriate food safety gear on? Is your hairnet in place? Did you wash your hands? How often do we check to make sure people are actually doing these things? And is there a feedback mechanism that allows for improvement without necessarily immediate punitive issues? Empower the base of the rules. So once you've engaged all layers of the team, now let the team do the work. Help them understand. It's probably easier for them, so them and the team to hold themselves accountable than to be engaging management every time there's an issue. And the example I use is, again, sanitation employee goes out on the floor, says, I need to do something, gets challenged because the person wants a piece of equipment back 5 or 10 minutes faster. That's not the process. They review the SSOP with the people involved, and then at that point, they engage, say, someone like myself, the manager. I come back, and the only thing I need to do is go out and reinforce to the folks involved that the process has been developed to meet expectations relative to a expected outcome, and we need to follow the process, and we can't change the process unless it's properly reviewed, and then all the teams is expected to be done a certain way, and that all members involved need to execute that. And if they want to affect a change, then they need to ask for that before we change the process. We're not going to change it on the run. The other part is being out there, working with people, being willing to hold each other accountable. A quality technician and or a supervisor or a quality supervisor or a line lead, they're not the police. They are extra sets of eyes so that we can make sure that as a general culture, we're compliant. And we need to be willing to hold each other accountable, hold each other to task, and then perpetuate and keep after it every day without an immediate negative consequence. There's coaching, there's the side conversations, there's that building a team spirit that is more about the team moving down the road and being more and more successful every day than a single person being called out on a single item on a one-off day. Next slide, please. So what do we mean by regular heartbeat? So oftentimes we lose stability in our management systems, our quality food safety systems, because we don't get together and share information. We don't share status. So each of the team members needs to develop a regular pattern, whether it be the maintenance manager, whether it be the organizational management team, whether it be from the CEO that says on a weekly basis, we're going to have a meeting and these are the things I expect at the meeting. FSQA says we're going to have a share top information once a week or every day, and it's going to be quality performance, it's going to be sanitation performance, it's going to be GMP compliance and consumer feedback. The important part is getting into either shift handoffs, team meetings, leadership meetings, having these difficult discussions, sharing the information, being transparent enough to share good and bad information, and then how do you follow up on those items? The following day, following week, if there were open items from the previous day or previous week, the willingness to ensure that the items were closed out and that we put in place either corrective measures or corrective actions that will either improve continuously or mitigate completely the situation that occurred. It could be as simple as a process mechanical item failed. It could be a deviation in a process control. It could be we had a spike in consumer complaints. How did we manage that? How did we change what we're doing and then make it stick? Then the food safety team in and of itself is a different kind of heartbeat. One, we need to annually meet because we're regulatorily bound by either FDA, USDA to do things like HACCP review and internal audits and food defense reviews. But we also need to make sure that the folks that are getting together understand the task. I challenge and would say that it's a good management task to make sure your team members are challenged. Why do they sit at the table? What is their job experience? What is their financial substitution looks like? And what the environment that you're dealing with and what the commodity is that you're dealing with. And hey, what are the general FDA expectations around the materials you're using? That would be the minimum expectations in a risk assessment type of situation that you need to assess. The more information, the more training you do of your team, the safety team, the more capable they are to sit at the table and give valuable feedback when you do these types of when you do your regular review exercises, the heartbeat of your quality management system or food safety system. Next slide, please. It is important that this stays and is enabled at the floor. The floor needs to know what we're doing. So the floor should be reviewing. How did we do yesterday? What are we getting done today? And on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, whatever you determine is effective for your team, but you need to have a team beat. Some type of review of key, we'll call it OPLs, operational lesson plans, food safety plans, GMP focus points that need to be reviewed. What is the focus of the day so that every day you're starting with something that we're bringing to highlight to improve? What was an opportunity that came up this week that we need to focus on for the next couple of days to make sure it doesn't come up next week or during one of the internal audits or any other activity? Or hey, an outsider comes and visits. How did we present? The more that this becomes a daily heartbeat, the more that the culture is just, we're ready every day. Come on, bring as many visitors as you want. The easier it actually is. It is oftentimes struck as it's so much work, but really, what's more work? The plan for the day is so what are the objectives today versus what did we get done yesterday? We've reviewed that, seen how our day's results were, how were the FSQA activities, did we have any variances, did we have any deviations, are there any call outs relative to GMP compliance? The perpetual, got to stay after it every day without fail, make sure everybody's always on the same page. Then what is the plan of today? What are we got to get done? And what are any special call outs relative to any kind of special products, any special details that we need to make sure the team is all on board with? Things as prevalent as label issues are these days in recalls, have you reviewed how you're going to label your packaging today? Is everything lined up? Is everything staged correctly? All needs to be top of mind as you begin the day. Getting out of the gate correct makes the rest of the day go much better. And then any operational lesson plans, as I briefly touched on, it can be a GMP issue. It could be something that went on with a piece of equipment to just make sure people understand what the correct setting is. It could be something touching upon a safety issue, any number of issues, but there always should be some kind of review topic that allows you to continually improve from a previous days or weeks activities on findings that have come up during the course of your routine huddles, routine meetings to make sure the information is being shared to all levels of the organization. So this seems sophisticated. Really, it's established measurable objectives. So this is something, I'll use an example from my past, a relative that's always a passion for QA folks, food safety folks, cleaning. I call it done, one and done. So how do you measure that? So you're looking at successes on a day-to-day basis, whether it was a success or failure. What were the results of the previous day, the previous week? What was your trend? And then how do you improve upon that? So you're establishing a one and done policy. You're establishing a consumer response policy, a timing. Keep it simple. Something that's going to give you an accurate, quick heartbeat. How are we doing? I have had many conversations over the years relative to GMP compliance. Is that a checkbox type of evaluation, or should it be scorable? In my mind, it's a scorable because it's an easy measurement. So you do your routine checks, whether they're built into applications you're using or it's the old school manual checklist, score that out, and then everybody in the facility knows every day how you did. And just keep after that. Actions. So celebrate victories. If you're improving, get together with a team, make sure you celebrate it. Don't know how often, just a simple slice of pizza or just thank you, great job. How much that actually means to folks when it becomes part of your mission. Deviations, changes, and missed objectives, we need to get after them. We can't just walk by them and assume they're going to fix themselves. Write it down, figure out who's supposed to get it done, and then determine what a reasonable timeline is and chase it till it's done. If it comes back up, then you have to dig in deeper. The management team, the leadership team, the floor knows that you can't make a formal corrective action, a formal root cause analysis out of every problem. So you have to determine what are your resources available, and then put energy behind things that are clearly broken and need the team to spend problem solving time getting after. Next slide, please. So this is kind of the highlight from a business perspective. Food safety is a business objective. If you think about it in a simple perspective, if you're proactive about it, you put the resources in, you meet your objectives, you make high quality product, you keep waste under control, you reward your people, you're developing your team, you get stronger. If you're reactive, you become part of the list of folks that ends up on the FSIS recall list, the FDA recall lists, the FDA visits where they hand out regular 483s because of non-compliances, because, hey, we're just going to go until someone walks out of the building and catches us. Obviously, from a business perspective, I would rather invest proactively than deal with the potentials of liability, long-term reputational damage, or out-and-out business failure where somebody just comes in and says, I'm sorry, we're just not going to let you do this anymore. And there is record that has happened on a number of occasions in the food world. Food safety is a key component of all strategic planning. So here, we as food safety folks are part of the plan. If we're going to grow the business, can we accommodate with our current systems getting that done? Do we have the resources necessary to stay the pace on how we're designed currently, or do we need to think about different ways of getting the same work done more efficiently, whether that's more sophisticated systems, whether that's more people, but it needs to be thought out carefully. You can't throw at an organization without involving food safety and QA significant additional responsibilities and or expectations for volume management without being part of the conversation. So you know what's coming. And then relative to operational changes, financial, food safety needs to be sitting at the table. You need to be part of the conversations relative to what does it cost for quality? What are the operational decisions that need to have some quality decisions involved relative to how you're going to change your organization, how you're going to manage an additional site, what is different about a particular process that's going to make it slightly non-standard to everything else that's going on. If you're not part of these decision-making processes, then you're not going to be aware of potential variations from either line to line, slight equipment differences, or from facility to facility where entire lines are from front to back different, but we're still trying to build the same product. So we need to sit at the table. We need to be able to have the difficult conversations. And if the culture is good, in the facility, you're not going to ask to be part of these conversations. You're going to be asked to be part of the conversations. You're not going to be having to seek to be part of it. They're going to call you and say, by the way, the meeting's on this day, show up. Because we've got plans we need to make because we're changing a process, we're increasing the size of our complex, or we're building a new complex. And therefore, we're going to need your input because we want to make sure we start this up right. Next slide. So your leadership team leads by example. So you can't, any member of the leadership team, walk out on the floor where you may have multiple layers of an organization and not be walking the walk. You need, if there's a coach involved, go out, walk the walk, be part of the day's requirements, not the exception because I only have a couple minutes and I don't have time to spare for that. It needs to be the priority. It clearly communicates commitment and support for the expectations, and it also is very clear there are no exceptions. Management team must all be on the same page. So if there is an expectation from a hygienic zoning control where employees are supposed to be relative to the management of your process, every manager, every team leader, every supervisor is on the same page, and the hourly floor level folks all understand how it is supposed to be executed. And then if anybody deviates, the self-accountability, the team must be willing to hold each other accountable. That is walking up to your peer and saying, hey, can you do this? Or you forgot this, and it's not punitive. You're holding each other up, making sure that you're supporting the system. And then mutual accountability, that's the peer-to-peer thing. Willing to walk into the building, see something that one of your peers hasn't or has forgotten, isn't doing or has forgotten to do, and in a non-punitive manner, walk up to them and say, hey, let's go back to the door. I need you to get your hairnet. We need to not be standing here with a cup of coffee. Those are really easy fundamentals, but any number of things. We need to be willing to hold each other at all layers. And it shouldn't be an issue if someone from the floor walks up to the FSQA manager who just walked into the building with a glass container and say, hey, you can't have that here. You just need to acknowledge, yes, you're right. Thank you very much, and walk out of the building with it. So if you can do that, your organization is learning and working together. Challenge the team always to step up, to not accept this is good enough. How can we improve? How do we get better at this? when we have an incident, how do we manage so that we have fewer of those deviations or incidents? And then the other thing that I've always found kind of fun in a FSQA humorous way is we always seem to be the PCQI, the HACCP team coordinator, the food defense QI person. Who else can? Get other people involved, get more trained people on your team. That allows for a stronger team. It allows for better backups. It allows for better team understanding of what the overall objectives are and what those tasks really are. And it is a development measure. So it's a measure that sometimes, say I have a supervisor or an assistant manager or assistant director working for me and they're not HACCP trained or they're not PCQI or they haven't led those particular initiatives. Now they have a resume entry item that now is a step up for them. And the reality is, like the little sticker, you can't be afraid to have the person in the room be smarter than you. You can't be afraid to have the team member that's with you today want to lead a team tomorrow. So you have to acknowledge the fact your job as a leader, as the FSQA director, is to develop people so that they themselves get promoted. And you have to acknowledge the fact that they may not be part of your team because they may find an opportunity to be you, either where you are or in another organization. But you need to be willing to do that. That's going to allow you to develop strong teams. And then again, to reiterate, by growing a stronger team, you can expand the HACCP responsibilities. You can have a stronger HACCP review. You can delegate PCQI responsibilities, which oftentimes people think, no, I'm PCQI, I have to do this. There is delegatable with training capabilities, and it's easier if there's also the training subsequent to have additional tasks spread out so you can do more review or change up who's reviewing what areas so that you can be more effective in those reviews and detect when you have deviation or variation that may not necessarily be non-conforming but indicates a trend that you should be getting after. So more knowledge, more power, stronger team. Next slide, please. So compliance. In the years that I've been dealing with FDA, CFIA, USDA, SQF, BRC, all these things, they are systems that are looking for us to be in compliance with formal rules or written doctrine. How do we monitor that? Simple. We have to be honest with ourselves. We actually have to go look at it. We have to create mechanisms to ensure we don't miss something. We need to involve our team and have them go look as well and have confidence in the fact that they understand the expectations and are going to do a good job of executing that review. And then continuously reviewing it and verifying. So the old adage, trust but verify, we need to feel confident that we're getting it done every day, but we also need to verify it actually got done. Next slide, please. So compliance with industry, this requires your team at their different specialties and in their specific areas of responsibility to be aware of what's going on in the product areas, in the products that you're manufacturing for the world. What's changing? What's the consumer want? And stay with the times. That is a perpetual chase. Oftentimes it falls on your marketing and your sales folks. Sometimes it's just flat out feedback you get from a current customer. It says, hey, we're sensing this, or we're going to need you to investigate X, Y, Z. So being capable and willing to do that. being aware of packaging and ability to engage maintenance, engineering, your QA folks, the QA folks of your upstream packaging materials folks, to ensure you're aware of the impact that those may have on your product to market. And then regulatory pressures. We all are aware with the things that are coming and potentially with grass. The ongoing, are we going to have natural or artificial colors? And then the conversation around highly processed. How does that impact your organizations? Each of us needs to look at what we're doing as a product to market every day, and then how does that impact your everyday business? Customer and internal requirements. Any given day, a customer can call you up and say, hey, we're about to do a label review, or we'd like to change the flavor, and or we'd like to change the size. So your QA folks, your FSQA folks, and all the stakeholders on your HACCP team, your food safety team, need to get together. Consumer and internal requirements. Can't tell you how many times, I'm not telling anybody on the audience anything they probably don't already know. Customers come at you all the time and say, hey, we'd like to change something up. So you need to be perpetually aware of what does the customer really want, and are we complying with those specifications? Then internal changes that may happen. Can we still meet the specifications that are already required by our customers? So it's a perpetual review cycle. Hey, engineering, don't change something and just assume we're going to be able to meet the customer's needs. We actually need to evaluate this and make sure the effective validations and process reviews are in play. And obviously customers are notified, hey, we're about to change something. Because there's a number of customers we all know that are very serious about, they need to be aware you made a change, and you don't make a change unless they sign off on it. So that's just all part of our formal process. And the more your team just knows that this is supposed to get done, the more likely they're just going to execute on the necessary steps to support that. Next slide. So basic takeaways. Culture starts at the top. You have to have a mission statement. There needs to be accountability. The one thing I didn't mention relative to accountability that has always been kind of an HR touch base with myself and has seemed to work through the ages is food safety and quality needs to be in everybody's job description and their performance expectations. An annual performance review should not be successful unless there's at least a call out on whether the person was actively involved with food safety and what their performance relative to that was. Engagement at all levels. Management walks the walks. Employees demonstrate awareness. So get out there, watch your employees, coach, reinforce, use your leaders that are good at it to teach other folks what's the right way to do things. Allow for the input and feedback, welcome it from all levels. So it's not just management decides. If the culture is good, your line people, your line leads that have been doing this for years, weeks, months, 12, 15 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, they probably know more than you do any given day about how a piece of equipment actually works. And then systemic ownership from the team, appropriate delegation. What do I mean by this? What I've been trying to stress the whole time. Your team owns food safety and quality, not the food safety and quality manager. The joke you always see on the platforms out there in multimedia, you got one person looking at the problem and 6 or 7 people standing around. Gee, I wonder if he's going to figure out or he or she is going to figure out what the problem is. It needs to be a team approach. The team needs to understand what the problem is, and then the team needs to work together to determine what the best solution is for the best overall mitigation. And then continually challenge knowledge. Food safety success depends on culture, not just one person, as I just stated. It requires a team. There is no such thing as me in team or I in team. It's the 7, 8, 10, however large a management team is that sits in the room. They're all part of the team. and you can't get this done, food safety, quality, without that. You must empower and trust. So the more you trust your folks, the more likely they're going to do the right thing. It doesn't mean that still you need to go back and regularly review. They should expect it. It shouldn't be a surprise. You get out on the floor, you look at the records, a simple, hey, great, thank you very much. More formally, throw an initial on a form, type a response into a document. Hey, I've been here. They know you're looking, they appreciate it, but it's not punitive. That's it. Thanks so much for your time.
Kevin, there's one question that we got on
Yes.
here. What if plant management and upper management are not willing to hold repeat offenders accountable?
Those are difficult conversations, and that you just need to be how do I say it? Relentless. The FSQA person is typically wired to get the job done. And so we need to be relentless, and we need to be willing to have those difficult conversations. That may mean you need to have a conversation privately with the team, with the facility leader and or HR. Be willing to have those conversations, and hey, we're not going to get through this unless we have some measure of ability to have a conversation with someone that's a repeater and some level of accountability. And I get it. The employees are difficult at times to retain, depending on how competitive the sector is you're working in. But forgiveness of a sin ultimately results in the organization having to absorb a liability. The perspective is, your organization willing to absorb that liability? So I don't recommend it, but that's definitely a difficult conversation.
One other question around allergens. Do facilities require to test Big 9 allergens test now for poultry meat items because of the regulation?
They are required to be able to acknowledge or understand why or what their ingredients are. So the inspectors are going in, randomly selecting samples, and then verifying either through product records and or testing whether an allergen exists in that product. Most of the time it's a label review based on specifications and records that show what was actually added to the material. There can be testing. It doesn't imply that there's new mandatory testing. What they are leaning on is the facilities need to be aware of what they put into a product, and it needs to be accurately represented on a label.
Thank you. If you have additional questions, we will probably have Kevin answer those offline as we're at the top of the hour. I do want to just quickly wrap up here. So we have the rest of the year planned with our webinars with the Atchison Group. We are going to have Mary Hoffman in October on Halloween, and then we'll also have Ruth Patron in November as well. And I'm really excited for our December. I'm not ready to promote it yet, but there is going to be a great webinar also in December with 2 really great speakers. One last thing for those who can stay on, there's more resources here that you can find from Safety Chain. You can also find some on the tag at the Atchison Group's website as well. And so for those of you who can stay on for about another 5 or 10 minutes, we'll have someone from Safety Chain, our solutions consultant, Brian Kahn. Chris, can you bring him up on stage? And he will actually showcase to you how Safety Chain can address some of the things that Kevin covered around food safety culture. And Kevin's been with us for years. He's spoken to a lot of clients like yourself. Brian, oh, sorry,
Yep.
I said Kevin. I meant Brian. Brian, can you take it away for us?
Yeah, absolutely. A pleasure to. And thank you, Kevin, for the presentation today. I know it was a little challenging, but a lot of good information in there. So we want to take a moment to take a look at our platform and just some of the ways that Safety Chain can empower you and your teams to provide, better accountability for your entire teams, including leadership. So I'm going to share my screen here for just a moment.
Hey everyone, we're going to take a brief look at the capabilities of Safety Chain and discuss some of the ways that this platform can keep your teams accountable for the daily tasks and actions that they need to be doing every single day on the production floor, as well as taking a look at the ways management can review and monitor progress as it relates to any process that's happening within your facility. So I want to start us out with some data capture. So primarily we capture data through our forms process. So we are a forms-based platform that allows us to capture data coming directly from the production floor or directly off of your equipment through connectivity through things such as ignition or SCADA systems, etc. So I'm going to open up my iPad that I have running beside me here. Now, we have mobile applications available for iOS, Android, as well as Windows products. This allows you really to be agnostic when it comes to the type of equipment that you're using or type of hardware that you're using in your facilities. We really meet you where you're at. Now, with our mobile applications, you can have the appropriate forms or processes pushed down to your team members, regardless of what type of role they have. So, my sanitarians would receive tasks relevant to sanitarians or QA processes. My maintenance team would receive maintenance-related tasks, so on and so forth. Now, in my inbox here, I have several tasks which have been assigned to me. First being a packaged weight form. This is very simple. We're going to collect some weight samples of some product that is being produced on our line. Now, when I open up this task, at the top, it's telling my resources, apples. So we're looking at some of my fresh apple products coming off of my line here at my Atlanta location. You will note that certain aspects of the form will carry over from one form to the next, such as identifiers and lot numbers. Again, for accountability purposes, it's always important that we're grabbing these types of identifiers so that we can trace back to the particular production or process that we are performing. And with these carryover options, we can have this type of information carry over from one form to the next to prevent things like fat fingering or just inaccurate entry of the information, cutting down on the amount of time it takes for your team members to actually enter information. So all I'm really doing with this form is I'm entering some baseline information. We're going to go pull some samples of my apples off of line 1. It is still shift 1, so that's already pre-selected for me. Is the line running, yes or no? If the line is not running, I could input some downtime reasons. So, if we have a downtime reason related to changeover or, something along those lines, we have an unplanned stoppage, we can notate that information to help us pick up some more data for reporting purposes. Again, keeping management and other key members of your team informed about what's going on. In this case, we're going to indicate the line is in fact running. Now, the form knows that we're looking at our apples product. So it has the weight range or the weight spec for this product. And we're simply just going to place items on the scale and enter the information. So as we place items on the scale, it reads directly into the form. You can type this information in directly, or it can flow from a connected scale. Kind of depends on, again, your particular approach. In the event that you are entering information manually, if someone's entering information, let's say I took a weight sample and it was 12.4 ounces, and I forget the decimal in this case, it will flag that for me. And in this case, since I put in 124 as opposed to 12.4, it is throwing an error message and saying, hey, this is way outside of our spec range. So this is keeping us accountable for making sure that we're entering accurate information into the platform. So let me just go back and add that decimal in here. Now that I've done so, that particular weight is still outside of our desired spec range. So it is highlighted here as a non-conformancy. However, you'll notice at the bottom of the form, it is calculating my average. And we have an average weight here that is within our spec range. So Another thing that we're doing here is we can present data back to the users. So we can understand if I'm entering information and perhaps, earlier in the day I had other team members entering information, etc. We can see that plotted out. And if we're drifting towards an upper control limit or a lower control limit, that is something that we can see as part of that process. Additionally, just taking a look at a pre-operations form here that we have in my inbox, you will note that forms can also carry baseline work instructions. So I have my notes and information here. I also have my SOP associated with this form. So we can pull documents directly from our document repository and have them associated to the forms that your team members are working on. So if they need access to an SOP or other work instructions, that's something that can be associated to the form. Again, you'll note that my production ID information is carrying over here. So I don't know reason to enter that. I can indicate that we're clean and sanitary, ready to go. Conveyor number 1 is looking great. Or I can indicate that there's a deficiency. When I indicate there's a deficiency, again, for accountability purposes, we are opening additional questions to help us, understand what is actually happening. So in this case, we discovered a deficiency. We want to know if this is a product contact area. I can indicate yes, and it will ask me for a correction. So it's pretty reasonable to assume that we would do a clean and re-sanitize on that piece of equipment. And we can further provide a description of deficiency. In this case, we'll say it's product residue. And we could add photos to this as well. So if you want like a before and after photo or something along those lines, we can do so. And I have my Peter versus chicken here on my desk. So we'll add that to this form as our visual evidence. And I can submit this information back to Safety Chain. So I could have done this offline because our mobile applications do have offline capabilities. So you don't miss a beat in case that there is some type of internet outage or limited Wi-Fi access. Back on our home screen link, we can monitor for tasks that are being done, so we can see what's currently due, what's being done on time, what hasn't been done. All of that can be monitored to make sure that we are completing the tasks that our team members need to complete. Additionally, we have lots of built-in capabilities and reporting within the platform. For example, probably one of my favorite reports or processes in the system is our exceptions reporting. This allows us to view any nonconformancies that have taken place in the facility over any time range that we want to look at. So, for example, I have the last 2 days here, and I have my Pareto chart, and I have 260 records where I've had some type of nonconformancy. Further, we can use the filters panel, which is found throughout the platform, to further refine the data so we can look at specific, let's say, QC processes. I have a saved filter within the system, which allows me to quickly toggle my data and get to the information I need to get to. So if I want to look at QC data specifically, I can view my QC data. I can drill down into it by clicking on the Pareto chart here. So, I've had 17 nonconformancies as it relates to my pre-operations process. I've had at least exactly 15 nonconformancies related to conveyor belt number 1. I can drill into that as well. So in terms of accountability, we allow you to be able to dig into your data and get to the information that matters quickly. So for example, if I want to understand, okay, well, conveyor number 1 has been having numerous issues. Those issues are related into what categories? So for example, here when I select that description of deficiency within my exceptions field on the Pareto chart, it's going to break down, hey, well, we've had 7 instances of product residue, 6 that were maintenance related, so on and so forth. From here, we could escalate this into a broader CAPA process or root cause analysis to be able to resolve this issue and prevent it from happening again in the future. Additionally, within our platform, we can take data, so your forms that are being filled out and submitted, not only can we provide that back to you in charting and graphing and other analytics, we're also organizing that data for you in the system to allow for better audit controls. So if we want to be able to prepare for, let's say, an SQF audit or BRC audit, we have program management. So these forms are automatically being filed away against the program that you may subscribe to, whatever GFSI style program your organization may work under. So this is my programs folder. I have lots of different programs. Just imagine each row here is the spine of a 3-ring binder. I'm sure we're all used to having stacks of binders around us where we're maintaining paperwork. This is the digital equivalent of that. So I can scroll down and take a look at any of my programs, and we'll just choose SQF here as an example. But we can open up any of the programs and view the program elements, and we can see any of the forms, any of the records, any of the documents that have been executed against any particular area of that particular within SQF section 2.4.3. I can open up and see all the records. So again, we think about just being audit ready and that level of accountability that your facilities need. We can see every record that has been executed that's related to section 2.4.3 of SQF version 9. And I can come in and look at a metal detector verification form that has been filled out, let's say. So if I'm an auditor or an inspector, they have immediate access to this. So I can see exactly, back on September the 3rd, Ian filled this out at our South Brunswick location. I have the timestamps, I have the Ferris tests. I also can see the other areas that this exact form has been filled out and filed away against. So my BRC program, my food safety manual, etc. All this information is captured within the system and keeping you audit ready at all times. So this has been a brief look at just some of the capabilities of Safety Chain and some of the features and functions that we do offer. Lots of ways for us to capture data, whether it's regulatory data, or if we want to take that data again and view it from a production standpoint, we can view live line data. In this case, we're viewing weights and defect counts on product that's coming off of the line. So lots of ways to hold our teams accountable, lots of ways for management to partner with their operating teams and understand what exactly is happening at the production level. We can view this from a single location perspective or multi-location enterprise perspective. The platform is super flexible and capable of really configuring your data and viewing your data in lots of ways. I hope this was helpful, and certainly reach out to us if you need a further demonstration.
The biggest takeaway we want to just share is that Safety Chain allows you to show accountability to your team, right? Be able to demonstrate to leadership some of the issues that you might be having, as Michael asked, around an employee who is a repeat offender. But now you have hard data to also prove and showcase that. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I know we went quite a bit over, but we look forward to seeing you on Halloween. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, gang. Have a great day.